Hey everyone, I'm Caryn Solomon, and welcome to What's IGN Crushing On, IGN Africa's official entertainment podcast. I'm your host, and I'm joined as always by my producer and editor Rebecca Barches. So this is a show where we discuss all things entertainment and pop culture with a new guest every week. We bring recommendations, news, and fun facts, sometimes touching on the more serious issues surrounding these topics. This has been a crazy year. What with the global pandemic taking over the world, having to be stuck inside and face almost unrecognizable circumstances. It's been a year when we've lost a lot, but we've also gained a lot as well. When we started the podcast 6 months ago, we didn't expect the love and support that we would receive, and we cannot review this year without being eternally grateful to everyone who took the time out to listen and share the podcast with others. This week, we are looking back on some of our favorite moments on the podcast, answering some of your questions, listening to some of our former guests' favorite content from 2020, and listing some of our favorites too. Join us for the last time in 2020. So we're going to throw way back to our very first episode when we explained what Crushing On is all about. So it might sound a little bit rusty, I'm sorry, but here's a little memory for everyone. If you're one of those people that only listens to the first 5 minutes of a podcast just to hear what it's about before you knock off, I'm just going to give you a little summary of what's going on before you decide whether or not you want to carry on listening. But let it be known that this is my first podcast and my first episode, so I'm going to be a little bit rough. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be Mark Maron, Joe Rogan, whoever you people listen to. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a little bit rough around the edges. I'm going to say like a lot. I'm going to laugh very annoyingly. And I've listened to this, so I know I laugh very annoyingly. So please don't tell me that. But anyway, Crushing On is a pop culture podcast. It's basically me having conversations with different people about what they're watching, what they're loving, what they're into, basically what people are crushing on. You get it? I'm the type of person, I really like conversation, and I really like learning things from other people. Like, I have my own opinions, but there's just something so special about hearing something for the first time from somebody else, or just hearing what they think about something. So I enjoy having those type of conversations. And I thought it might be a cool idea to just record some of them, share it with people that are constantly looking for recommendations, what to watch, what to read, what to listen to. So this series of podcasts is going to be me chatting to my friends, people I admire, people I've always wanted to talk to, and just sort of finding out more about them, finding out more about what they like, just in general, conversations, chatting, whatevs. So yeah, I'm assuming if you're here, you're probably listening because you know me. There's very few people that do, so thank you to all 5 of you for listening in. I would just want to welcome you into my world, into the people I like. And the question that I get asked most frequently is, what should I be watching? And I'm of the strong opinion that what you watch and what you like is very subjective. So depending on your past, depending on what interests you, mostly depending on what you enjoyed as a child, because that always comes back up again. You might not like everything that I recommend, but somebody else might come with a pearl of wisdom of this show or this movie or this book that you might never have thought of to watch, and you did. So that's what I've discovered through doing these interviews, is that there's so much out there, so much content, so much pop culture that I haven't consumed because I didn't know about it and because it just wasn't recommended to me. So this is a way to discover something new. Because, what else are we doing during this time? We're discovering new things. So through our 28th episode, there were many great moments, a lot of laughs, a lot of tender moments, and moments where things really got deep and interesting. So we tried to take 10 snippets out of 28 episodes, and it was really, really difficult. So, please don't judge us for what we pick, but we just thought that they encompass sort of how the year went for us, moments in the year, and also a little bit of encouragement for you as you head into 2021. So the first one that we have is from episode 16, which was with comedian Lindy Johnson. And she talks about the importance of making fun of yourself and sort of reclaiming the space where you might have been bullied or other people might have put stigma on you. And I thought it was just such an encouraging note and such an interesting way to look at comedy. She referenced in particular the comedy of legendary comedian Richard Pryor.
Because he caught on fire because he was covered in cocaine.
Oh, that's brilliant though.
And he was running down the street screaming like it was this massive scandal. And then he made a joke about that. And I love that because that's what comedy means to me, is like reclaiming everything that has happened in your life and laughing at it. So for me, that was the first time I saw that, and I was like, this is amazing. Because everybody was making fun of him, and he's a druggie, and he has no control of his life, and he was like, yo, fuck it. This is what happened, and I'm going to tell it, and you guys are going to laugh at it. And just, it's so powerful, man.
Our next snippet is from another comedian, Yasin Barnes, in episode 24, where he talks about how comedy is for everyone and about creating spaces for people who are underrepresented and to people who don't usually see themselves as funny or who have stories to tell. And he explains it so great. So I'm going to head straight into that.
And again, for me, as someone that makes platforms, when I spotted her, I was genuine like, I want more colored people to start comedy and I want more women to start comedy. When I meet people after a gig and I speak and I spot the actual funny, not just them trying to be funny in front of me, actual funny people, I ask them if they would like to start stand-up. Because again, I go, we need more women. I would love to make a room that is just aunties performing for aunties. Because you laugh, but know it's going to be fucking funny. Like when they complain about the husbands, it will be. When they complain about the lighties, mad funny. So I just go like, those are the rooms I want to start making, and like that's genuinely the thing I want to make as a career. If I can in my career going, I've made a room that is just for women by women, like that I've basically put together and gone like, yeah, do it. Then I'll retire. I won't retire, but I mean, it will be a highlight.
One of my favorite moments on the podcast was when we spoke to Lebo Sabisi, and he gave just such a great and logical explanation as to why, if you want to be a WAG, which is a wife or girlfriend or wife and girlfriend of a sports player, the best one to be is an NBA WAG. And his logic is so on point, and the way he explained it is so well done that, I had to replay it again on this episode.
So the thing about NBA WAGs is, right, NBA has, in American sports, there's the three sports, there's NFL, NBA, and MLB, right? With NFL, like, it's more stable. Like, you always see those are the ones that get married, and like the cheating is fairly minimal and stuff.
Yeah.
But NFL salaries aren't guaranteed, and the only people who really get paid are the quarterbacks, as well as like, let's say, like the absolute best in their positions, and that's only like one guy, maybe two, But now the thing about NFL is like your salary isn't guaranteed. Like if you get injured, which happens a lot, because it's NFL, you don't get paid as much. Maybe you'll get like, let's say 65% of your salary. That thing makes a difference. There's a big difference between $10 million and like, 6.5. So if you're a quarterback, fantastic, because those guys, like the baseline now is about 30 million. But like, again, you don't always get it if you get injured. So, and there's only 32 quarterbacks, I should say, across the league, or like 32 quarterbacks across the league, but only like maybe like 10 or 15 serious ones. NBA is like NBA has the highest salaries of the three sports, and and their salaries are guaranteed. There's no cap in MLB, which is baseball. So that means that the salaries can go up for whatever, A guy can get paid $50 million a year if they wanted to. I don't think any guy does that. But again, that's also only for like the absolute best of the best. So with NBA, because there's the league is literally only 400 people. Like there's only like 430 players on the total NBA roster. And you already know that I think the lowest salary, like rookies, make like $2 to $3.5 million. So this is a guy straight out of university. He's making $3.5 million and it's guaranteed. You see. So now like a guy like LeBron, literally just his base salary is almost 40 million.
Sure.
Just base salary. That doesn't even include endorsements and stuff. Because I think they say LeBron's net worth is about 700 million US right now. You know, you've got guys like Steph Curry, because chances are, if you're even like slightly decent, you're going to get like endorsements and stuff. And then the best thing about being an NBA WAG is those guys are really indiscriminate about their cheating. So what will happen is you will get cheated on, right? But literally your man's teammate would be willing to be with you. It happens all the time. So like you've got much more like, let's say, job security. Like there's a lot of labor turnover. Like they share a lot of people, but at the same time, as long as you stay in the league, you're more or less fine. You know, that's why All-Star Weekend is such a big deal. Like that's like the World Cup final for like baddies. Like listen, like All-Star Weekend, all the best of the best are gonna be there. Guys who are getting new contracts, contract extensions, bonuses, are all gonna be there. So you just need to make sure you get chosen. So if you can get yourself to like the WAG level, you'll be fantastic. If you can trap them with a baby, even better. Like this one guy, Steven Jackson, you probably never even heard about him. He was an okay player. He's not like, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's won like a title in his life, but he was like average, right? Average. But he's paid over $10 million in child support in his life. And this is a guy you've never heard of.
A fave of the podcast and pop culture expert Sloan was our guest on episode 4, and he speaks about many things, but one of the most important points that he says is about representation and the progress of representation and the importance of it in the content that we consume, especially on television. And he explains it so well. I'm gonna give it over to Sloan.
I think growing up and watching as much TV and movies as I have for the first 25 years of my life, it was a white man's world. And every love story you saw, every family show you saw revolved around a white person or a white family of cops, a white family of bakers. The white girl in the horror movie, Jennifer Love Hewitt, has a black friend, Brandy. But the black girl is never the lead. So I'm so glad that we are at an age and a stage now in life and in our art where we are able to sample what we want. So I can purposely go out there and say, I want to see more things centered around the black experience and the queer experience. I do not have to watch normal terrestrial TV. So I do not need to watch this episode of White Family in the Suburbs tonight. I can go and watch a 90-minute movie about people of color. I love that we are constantly growing the art form and telling interesting stories, but that we now are at a very fortunate place where, like I said, you don't have to tell a story about struggle. You can have someone black, and I say black in air quotes because I don't know if this has ever been something that they brought up in the show, but a show like Star Trek Discovery, where you have a black woman at the helm of the spaceship. We are sending black people into space. We are not only sending black people off to be slaughtered or tortured or run away from their slave masters. Black people are in space. Black people are working in hospitals. We are getting a representation of what the world looks like.
Yeah.
Not that I acknowledge the existence of aliens. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm one of those nuts that believes that people are listening and I need a little tinfoil hat. But when we look at the world, we want to see every different shape, every different color, every different sexuality and gender representation. As much as we are learning about that right now, the best way for us to also educate people on that is to incorporate that into what we are consuming daily.
Yeah.
It does not have to be one man or one woman making 2.5 children, you know?
On episode 5 of the podcast, we were very lucky to have Dr. Alison Adams as our guest. She spoke about the various pop culture things that interest her, but we also could not help but speak about the COVID-19 pandemic. This was before the recent second wave, which has ravaged South Africa. But, I mean, a lot of the things are still important and stand true, so which is why we included this segment in the Best of 2020 episode. Alison speaks about the Facebook page that she started, Faces of Livingston Hospital. Livingston Hospital is in Port Elizabeth, and since we spoke, they had been in the news frequently with the rising COVID-19 infections in the city, as well as the state of the hospital and controversies around it. If you haven't followed the Facebook page and liked it, I suggest you do so now. It's very emotional. And she talks and she profiles a lot of workers in the hospital, some of whom have passed on since she started the page. And she also speaks about the versatility and how amazing South African doctors are. And I think in a time such as this, when they are run down, when they are doing the most to save the people in this country, it's worth it just to honor them and what they are doing. So yes, Alison.
So obviously it's the whole structure of the hospital and the thinking and everything has changed completely. But for me, it's made me look at a lot of people in the hospital differently. I started doing this like Facebook page called Faces of Livingston, where I go around and I do little interviews with people in the hospital that are doctors. So like the man who carries the dead bodies to the mortuary, or the guy who collects the laboratory specimens, like people that you don't notice, but without them, things don't work, and I think it's like a big thing for people to be named and acknowledged, because I think then they feel part of the team and they feel like their contribution matters. So COVID for me has really made me look around at the hospital and be like, this person, I've worked here for 3 years and I've never known their name. Mm-hmm. And if they weren't here, no one would dish up the food for the patients in the ward, for example. And I've learned a lot of people's names and jobs. And I went to the switchboard, which is like a tiny room inside the hospital, and met one of the guys who works in the switchboard, has been working at the hospital for 40 years, 40. And yeah, it just has been quite eye-opening. Also quite tense, obviously. There's a lot of fear and a lot of misinformation and a lot of misunderstanding. It's also made me really appreciate my career choice, because I'm not kind of exactly in the forefront of it. Yeah. But I don't think there's a lot of places in the world where you can get the kind of training that we get, so that even 10 years into your training, even if you're a super, super specialist, you can still, a South African doctor can do anything. You can put us in the middle of a mass casualty, you can put us in an ICU, you can put us anywhere, and we will make a plan, we'll make it work, we will sellotape things together, we will push patients, we will it's just made me appreciate the training, the excellent training that I've had. I'm trying to be more positive, and I think it's working. I'm trying to start every day by thinking about all the good things at the hospital.
We chatted with Tash Montlick in episode 8, and she spoke about horror movies. Well, I mean, I say it in more detail in this episode, but I'm not necessarily a fan of horror films. But she talks about the link between that and dealing with addiction and understanding your feelings. And it was such an interesting correlation that, I wanted to include it in this episode, just to understand how the content we consume punctures into our everyday life and how it can help us to understand ourselves even better?
For me, I think it comes down to being in touch with my emotions, and I am how do I say this? I have an addiction. I've been sober for 8 years, and for me, the disease of addiction is being unable to tap into my emotions, and I find it extremely hard as an addict to know if I'm feeling happy or if I'm feeling sad. Like, I really do have to think about it. And I love horror films because it's so stark, the emotions in horrors and dramas, that I am so attracted to it because it's so easy to identify. And it teaches me, how to identify my emotions better. And that, we really are going very deep here, but this is why I love films so much, because you really can just surface level films and watch them. But, underneath it is all about humanity and telling human stories. So, yeah, that's why I love movies. It's all about, what's in your heart.
In episode 12, we spoke to Inga Davids, the host of the podcast Her Bold Story, and we spoke about dealing with rejection, which is something I think a lot of women deal with, and especially women of color. And she spoke about how she circumnavigates around it and how it's sort of not become an issue for her, and she's more likely to take risks because of it. And I just loved her explanation, and that's why it's in our best of 2020.
I think one of the earliest memories that I have, that I remember my father told me, is like, look, there's always going to be somebody that's better than you, right?
Mm.
It's just how it's going to be. And it probably came, that advice probably came off, or that comment probably came off of the back of me not getting something, me not getting an award, me not getting a prize, me not coming first, something to that effect. And when he told me that, that's stuck with me for the longest time, because I think from that point of rejection and then that comment that came with it, I was like, okay, so there's always going to be somebody better than me, granted, but actually nothing stops me from then trying. I think it's that. And I think from there on, I knew there will always be somebody better than me, but nothing stops me from trying, because I have absolutely nothing to lose. And that's something also that came, I think, in the last 6 years around nothing ventured, nothing gained. Because if you don't try it, you're kind of letting yourself down just because you think you're not going to get it, but you didn't even try to get it. How sad is that? You didn't even try to get the thing that you wanted. And then, so obviously you're not going to get it because you didn't try. So who do you have to blame but yourself for not trying? So yeah, I think it's probably that. There's a lot in me that I'm not afraid of rejection. I'm pretty much not afraid of failure either, because it's all part of the learning curve. So if you rejected me, right, and maybe it's also because we went to a girls' school, and dealing with boys and rejection, it kind of comes with the territory of being a woman. So you kind of just I don't need to be liked by everybody, and that's okay. My worth is not attached to you liking me or not. I think there's that comes in play with dealing with rejection. You just we didn't gel. It's okay.
Yeah.
On to the next one. This is not the end of the road. And I think that's just a very important mindset to hold when you're wanting to do something, because you have to have so much confidence in your own idea.
We spoke to the Bachelor Season 2 contestant Mulesa Lumina in episode 17 of the podcast. She is a human rights lawyer turned marketing maven. She's a podcaster, jewelry designer, many things. But she's also very interested in socio-political issues. So we spoke about the conservativeness of South African people with regards to religion and culture versus how progressive our constitution is. And we spoke a bit about how things like feminism and Black Lives Matter and that sort of thing impact us when these two worlds collide. And her answer was just so insightful that I felt that I had to include it as part of our recap of this year.
I get what you mean. There's that huge gap between what our society is supposed to be, and especially because the Constitution is one of the most most liberal, one of the most nuanced, one of the most, detailed ones in the entire world. You would think that, perhaps we would be leaps and bounds ahead in SA when it comes to these sorts of issues. But again, it's still so difficult to talk about, sex, let alone sexual assault or rape and that sort of stuff. So it's very, very tricky because, again, because our cultural values, which are, largely still very patriarchal in nature, and you're still very much conservative, kind of put those blockades on women wanting to speak out about issues that affect them, and also just getting men as well to want to come to the table and say that, look, we also, want to see all women in society being treated with dignity and with respect, and that there should be, that violence against women is just an anathema that needs to just be completely eradicated. We need to get there. We need to have that desire to get there. It's just, I fear it will take a bit more time because, again, like I see, like SA compared to other African countries, is so liberal. I mean, with LGBT, QIA plus rights as well. But at the same time, so many LGBTQ people are being killed every single day.
Yeah.
So many of them are just being harassed and persecuted. So again, it's just that conflict between like the religious values and the cultural values, which are still so conservative. It is probably going to take some time before that will, I guess, be aligned with South Africa's constitutional vision, so to speak, for what the country should be. Because obviously people have the right to practice their religion freely, to practice their culture freely. The Constitution protects those rights as well, but it is in direct conflict with women's rights to bodily autonomy, to being able to decide for themselves what they want to do with their bodies. Oh, I wish I had the answers, but I guess all we can do is just try as much as we can to educate other women as much as we can, to give them a voice, to the marginalized, and do what we can to just help to also educate our sons, our uncles, our fathers, etc. For those of us who are a bit more liberal and open-minded, to try as much as possible to, despite maybe what kind of backlash we would face, to just keep on pushing and keep on showing people and teaching people this is how things should be. Yeah. And it doesn't have to take away from your right to practice your religion. Doesn't have to take away from your right to practice your culture freely, but just allow people just to live their lives where they would like to. It'll be better for all of us in the long run.
When we originally began the podcast, we thought that the conversations would be extremely light because we were talking about pop culture. But that's not exactly the person that I am. I always search for the deeper meaning behind things. And, just like Molesa before us, I'm very interested in social political issues. So it quickly turned into deeper conversations and became more serious. So which opened us up to have very different conversations with different people. In episode 20, I interviewed the author Mia Arden about her novel Mermaid Fillet. We will talk more about it in other segments of the podcast, but we spoke about the concept of the two Cape Towns, where the privileged live on one side of the train tracks and the underprivileged live on the other side as a result of apartheid. And she speaks about it a bit in her book, but I wanted to include what she said about it on the podcast as well, because I thought that the way she spoke about it was so good that more people need to hear it. So if you have not listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you do.
No, I'm quite passionate about that. Is that like there are two Cape Towns, man? There's like two parallel universes that exist. There's rich Cape Town with a beautiful mountain and people, buying pesto in the gentry and like just being, I don't know, living a certain like glamorous Cape Town kind of life that you do on Kloof Street or wherever. And there's the other Cape Town which isn't pretty like that, which exists. It's almost like it exists separately. The way Bellville is completely different to Bellville South. And then there's Rondebosch and there's Athlone, and these are different places. That's like two totally different worlds. And so, look, I've added like a fantasy element where there are mermaids being traded and menstrual storms. So it's a world that doesn't exist, but it's almost that disparate where like the world, the other Cape Town is almost that different to pretty rich white Cape Town, that it could be like an entire fantasy novel because it exists kind of on its own, and spatial apartheid will do that. They're two different universes within a city. And I think Cape Town is probably one of the worst. Like in terms of spatial apartheid, it's still I think one of the most segregated cities like that, where like over the railway line there's a whole different universe that lives there.
Our final segment for our recap of 2020 is from episode 27, where we interviewed musician Danny Bagel. Danny speaks a lot in her episode about understanding yourself, about caring for yourself. And she spoke to us about the music video of her song, which is on Spotify, called Testing. It's a brilliant song. And she spoke about giving yourself permission to try things, to go outside of your comfort zone, to do something new. And I thought that what a great way to cap off 2020. You know, we don't know what 2021 holds for us. We know that, you know, the virus isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We are still going to adhere to safety precautions. But, you know, give yourself permission to try something new. For me, this year, it was the podcast. I don't know what 2021 holds for me. But, yeah, my thoughts is that you should try something new too.
The best part about Testing is that that song was really just about like giving yourself permission to try things. I'm not sure, but I'm in like, let's just dive in. Like, that's kind of just the testing the waters, testing the mic, testing the space, testing your environment, and just being like, the outcome and the beauty of doing things can't be because of the guarantee of it being great when you come out. It's that adoration and the promise that people are going to be excited that you've released music now for the first time. I didn't have that promise. I don't have that promise.
So, Rebecca, we got some questions from some listeners. If you're keen, are you keen?
Oh, fun. Always keen.
So the first question we got was from Carisha, and she asks,
hi, Carisha.
What are your top 5 favorite movies ever? And I think it's such an unfair question that we ask other people, and then we're like, how?
It's such an easy question.
Like, oh my gosh, it's taking so long. But
what the hell? Are you gonna go first, or should I go first?
Okay, I can go first, and I'll give you some extra time to think.
Okay.
I'm making almost like this is easy for me, but I have I thought about this for quite a bit when I got the question from Carisha, and I have about 11 favorite movies. And I'm telling you now, I swear to God, if you had to ask me tomorrow what is my top 5 favorite movies, I'll give you like completely different movies probably.
Yeah, but same.
So I based it on like what I'm feeling right now, and also like movies that I feel that I like to rewatch. Like there's a lot of movies that I'm like, oh, that is amazing, best movie ever. But I feel like you know, that's not the movies that I go back and want to watch over and over again.
Yeah.
Like for example, Spotlight, the movie. I mean. The people like, that's really the example you're going with. But I love that movie. I think it's excellent, but I doubt I'll ever rewatch it again.
Yeah.
But, for example.
Yes.
But so my top 11, I'm sorry, I'm making my own rules. So
well, then I'm also, while you're doing this, I'm actually going to write down top 11.
So my first one is When Harry Met Sally. That's okay. Honest to God, that's probably my favorite movie ever.
Nice.
It's really, I just think that the script is excellent. Nora Ephron, I love her writing. And she is just so lovely. And and Buddy Crystal and Meg Ryan just have like the best banter. Like that's something I really like in a movie. I like movies with good banter. So I like a lot of those old movies from like the 1950s, although none of them are on the list. But I mean... Oh, I have one. But I mean, like a lot of those old movies where they're always like jibber jabbering with each other. Then my second one I have is Big Fish, which is the Tim Burton movie. I just think it's such a beautiful film, and like the way that like this the relationship between the father and the son, and how they and like the stories that the father told and the son not believing it, and it just looks stunning, and the whole fantasy aspect of it I love. And then number 3 is Clueless. Also probably one of my favorite movies, based on my favorite Jane Austen book, Emma. So and it's just so funny, and it just holds up so well. Then I have A Roman Holiday, which is a movie from the 50s, which I like.
Oh, I've never seen that.
And Gregory Peck. Oof, Gregory Peck is so hot, I can't deal. But it's quite a bittersweet movie, but it's just so also pretty and so heartwarming. And I just think Audrey Hepburn is such a lovely leading lady, like regardless of all the memes and all the like inspirational quotes that she's always put on. Like she is a really good leading actress. Like I love most of her movies, but this one is my favorite. And then Emily. I mean, I think everybody likes Emily.
Oh, of course.
I'm pretty sure everyone loves it. And it's just also so cute. And then if I've got this like manic pixie dream girl thing going with like Audrey Tautou and like Audrey Hepburn, but also so funny and cutesy, and all the little moments. The whole thing with the gnomes is so cute. And then my almost made it to the top 5 list, which is the rest of the 11, is something a movie we mentioned on the podcast quite a few times, Talladega Nights, which is my favorite Will Ferrell comedy. Like, I don't care what you think about Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights is so brilliant. Like the way that they do the whole like the crazy versus like the straight man comedy. It's just so funny. Like I will laugh every time that movie. It's so absurd, and it's like a movie about racing. And
just thinking about it now, and I'm laughing. You don't even have to watch it.
And then Black Panther. I went to watch Black Panther 4 times at the movies. I loved it so much. It was just such a it's such a cultural experience, and I think that was a part of the reason why I loved it that much. Like if my favorite Marvel movie per se is probably like Thor Ragnarok, because it was so funny and like lovely, and you're like, what are you talking about? But Black Panther,
I've never seen.
is that like heartwarmingness that it just makes you want to watch it all the time. Then another like cliched favorite, The Devil Wears Prada. I really love that, and also like it kind of inspired me in like a career way, even though no way I'd probably ever work for Vogue. But like
never say never.
But like, you know, I'm old now. But like I just think it's just such a lovely movie. I sing lovely a lot. And then Get Out. I'm not a horror movie fan, but like the way that like Get Out like married like cultural criticism and an interesting thriller and comedy was really well done for me. And like I rewatched it so many times for like a genre movie that I don't usually watch at all. So that's why that's on my list.
A good one.
And then my last two, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It is a teen movie that came out quite recently. I watched probably like 5 times after it came out, and then it's like sort of become like my New Year's tradition where I watch it like at midnight and like my losing self. But I just think it's such a good movie, and the way it's put together is excellent. The cast is brilliant, and it's just also so sweet and so well done. I'm not a big fan of the second one, but the first one definitely. And then my last one is another Meg Ryan. I'm starting this list with Meg Ryan, and I'm ending this list with Meg Ryan, and it's You Got Mail. So You Got Mail is almost like my my comfort movie, like when I'm feeling sad, or I feel like I need to pick me up, or I'm feeling sick, or any of that kind of thing. That's like the movie I turn to. And even if sometimes like I can't find it, then I will like YouTube like my favorite scenes. So sorry, Carisha, I went like way off what you asked, but it was very difficult.
Okay. I'm just gonna go quickly. You're mine.
Sorry.
And mine is so top 10 in no particular order, and it's probably going to change within 1 week. It's not going to be the same. I'm going to start with childhood movies, Toy Story, and Matilda. And then I'm going to go to movies that I enjoy the sound, like use of sound and soundtrack. So it's Blade Runner 2049, Psycho, because it's a classic. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. The use or the lack of use of sound in that movie made that movie 10 times. Well, it was brilliant, but then it added a second layer of like amazingness. And then how many is that now? I've lost count. So wait, I've got Matilda, Toy Story, Blade Runner, Psycho, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That's 5. No, okay, the other 5. Sorry, Carisha. Black Klansman, Kill Bill, the first one. And then there's a movie that I like that not a lot of people have seen, but it's the original version of Secret in the Eyes. It's the Argentinian version. El Secreto de sus Ojos. I don't know how to speak Spanish, but that is Spanish. And that is number 9. What's that? 9. And then it's a toss-up for me of between Talladega Nights and Anchorman, because
Also brilliant. Both.
yeah,
Add both.
Baxter ate the cheese. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
Okay, so our second and third question came from Zama. So let's go to the second one first. So the second one is, have you ever been starstruck during an interview?
So this is just for you, I think.
I don't know. I think there's a certain amount of starstruckness through any interview. I don't know if it's starstruckness or nervousness. Rebecca knows this. Like I'm pretty nervous every interview, even if I know the person. Like, do you remember how nervous I was before I interviewed with Knox? And I worked with Knox for like a full year. Like,
yeah, and she was literally super chilled.
I think I was quite starstruck for Mia Meerden, because she was like, even though I'd known her before, like I didn't know her well, and like and she has that kind of like cool energy about her, and like and like one thing I know about myself is I'm like perpetually uncool. So so I'm like I was very nervous about that. Otherwise, the Riding with Sugar interview, I was definitely starstruck for Hakeem K. Kazim. I mean, we grew up watching him on TV, and like he didn't know who I was, so it was a bit like, that was a bit starstrucky. But yeah, I think that's my answer. Hakeem, Mia, maybe even Knox a bit, Okay, so third question is, who is your dream guest? For me to be, I mean, locally, I have my dream guests locally. I think I have about 2 or 3. I have a long list of dream guests. So I should actually just note that from the offset. I have like a wish list of like, if I could get anybody, this is who I would get, and it's just like my ambition to see myself go through it. But like locally, definitely Kim Engelbrecht, because I don't think that any celebrity has inspired me as much as I always like. I think I might. I don't know if I told the story on the podcast, but I've spoken to many people about it. Like the first time I felt represented on TV was when I saw her. And
that's so
I always felt that she was very authentic in who she is. She was a colored girl and Cape Town colored girl, and I never felt like she was trying to be anybody other than herself. And I've seen her career grow, and she's just been so humble about it, and unproblematic, and just so chilled. And I tweet about her all the time, and she's replied to my tweets to say like thank you. And I'm like this nobody girl from whatever. But I mean, like, it's just like she just shows so much appreciation for her fans as well. And I really love her. My sister even said to me, like, she was like, what if you get to chat to Kim Engelberg one day? Would you die? And I was like, I would literally die. And another one, I think I would also be, a dream guest would be Mark Lottering.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
if it was anyone I grew up loving, it would be Mark Lottering.
We can make it happen.
Yeah, so I think he's also then
Sure.
internationally. I mean, God, it has to be Meghan Markle. Who else can it be?
100%. I'm on board with that one.
Meghan Markle. I mean, I love her with my whole entire heart. She's my future best friend. It can only be her. I mean,
Yeah,
Conan O'Brien too.
I thought you guys, oh my gosh, with this list, we'll be here forever if we keep going.
Okay, but too international.
Tina Fey
as well. Oh my God.
and Amy Poehler.
Okay, that's a bit, I doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, you said, what is this?
Dream. It's a dream. It's a dream.
A favorite reality is going to happen.
Amy Carling as well, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I really like her energy as well. But okay.
What about like Jason Mantzoukas?
Can you imagine? He's so chaotic.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Jason Mantzoukas, but he's, you know, if I could only choose two, if a fairy godmother had to come to me today and say you can get two dream guests of your choice, like I love.
Say fairy godmother, you can leave. Oh, this question's too difficult.
Yeah, but I would say Meghan Markle. I'll be like, just give me Meghan Markle and Conan O'Brien, and I'll be good.
Nice.
Okay, so our fourth question comes from Michelle, and she said, how do you manage to get a podcast out every week with only 2 team members?
Good question, Michelle.
Sleepless nights, Michelle. That's the answer. Yeah. Sleepless nights, tears, and lots of alcohol. I'm just kidding. I can't do a lot of work with alcohol. Lots of chocolate is more likely the answer. So the answer is really that we work very hard, and we have tight schedules, and I mean we
do it for the love.
And we do it for the love. Like, we don't get paid to do this. We do this all for free. Yeah, we fueled by love and sleepless nights and chocolate. So yeah. Our fifth question, which is our final one. Who would you choose to play you in the movie of your life? That's by Stacey.
Zoe Kravitz.
Ooh, yes.
I needed to call dibs on that before you took it.
No, she does not look like me. She looks way more like you. But
yeah, but I mean, like, in terms of, I'm sure with a little bit of makeup, you know.
But no, I can actually see Zoe. I can actually see Zoe Kravitz playing you. Definitely.
Thank you. I'm taking this as a compliment. Thank you.
I
keep it cool.
I have to give like a white person. Oh my
No, you don't. Why? You can give a man if you wanted to. Will Ferrell.
Because you remember when Kate Blanchett played Bob Dylan? Do you remember that?
Yes, was his I'm Not Here.
Yes.
Yes. Oof, I'm gonna watch.
I love Bob Dylan.
But focus here.
I think my answer. Okay, so my answer will be obviously
Kate Winslet. Can I guess? Kate Winslet.
No, why would Kate Winslet way too old to play me? You rude.
Oh, but we're going through like phases of life as well. I could say like I want Meryl Streep to come in at one point, or Oprah.
My ultimate dream to play me would be Tessa Thompson, and I know she would. Like,
I know this is bad, but who that?
Tessa Thompson, man, like I'll send you a photo of her. She's
okay. Thanks. I'll Google.
She's in a lot of stuff. Why couldn't I think of one thing she's in? I was gonna say Thor Ragnarok.
It's not important.
You already said you don't watch. You don't watch it.
This is why I listen to your podcast, Caryn, because I can't keep up.
She's in Westworld. She's in.
Listen, don't bother. I'm gonna Google. What?
Annihilation.
Nope.
That movie about the virus thing with Natalie Portman. So my one friend, Herman, says that I remind him of Brie Larson. And she's my age. Do you remember Brie Larson from TRL?
Give me a second, I'm Googling.
Can I tell you the story? So one day, Brie Larson had a new song out on TRL. And you messaged me, and I don't know, I think it was still like SMS because I don't think there was Mix at that time, even see it. And you were like, please watch TRL.
Historic times.
Yeah. You're like, please watch TRL. There's a girl on the show. There's a music video by a girl whose name is Brie, like the cheese. Ha ha. Whenever I've seen her, like even as she's like Oscar winning performances, I'm like, the girl whose name is Brie, like the cheese. Ha ha. That SMS you seen.
Made that, yeah. I thought it was funny 17 years ago, and I still think it's hilarious. But anyway.
So she's our age, so I think that she would be a good one, even though she is white. So Tessa Thompson, her, and if it's a young version of me, also a white girl, but there's this actress, her name is Bobby Ferreira. She's in Euphoria. Oh, Zendaya will be a good young you.
Like I know who she is, but I don't know like what's a vibe, if you know what I mean.
So okay, so mine is Tessa. Okay. We like to get all over the place. So mine is
no, it's fine. Okay, you go.
Brie Larson and Bobby Ferreira, and yours is Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah, and who's the other one? Oh, and Natalie Portman, just because she's beautiful, and like I want someone beautiful.
And she's a really good actor. I also, if it's gonna be a movie of my life, I want it to be like an Oscar-winning movie. I don't want like a Hallmark movie. So I want like good actors in it.
What do you mean, like Billy from Days of Our Lives playing you or something?
Yeah. No Days of Our Lives actors.
And like going back to Yasin's episode where he's like, "No, Billy, what are you doing?"
But I'm not switching off the TV.
Yeah.
And now we have a message from Zaid Creel, the editor of IGN Africa. One of the exciting things that happened after the podcast launch was that we partnered with IGN Africa to become part of their brand as well. It's been so exciting and lovely to be a part of a brand that is so well known, and for them to put their faith in us like a newbie baby podcast. So, yes, Zaid.
I think cold calling Caryn to ask her if she would be interested in merging Crushing On and IGN to create like a Voltron of podcasts was probably one of the best decisions I made in 2020. And I'm really glad that she and Rebecca agreed to it, and they're just doing amazing work, and I'm so proud to like have IGN be associated with it, with the work that they do. And then having me on as a guest and that episode featuring me was probably one of the best conversations I've had all year. And it was so much fun. Caryn has like this amazing ability to just draw out what you are thinking with very little words on her part. She's just really good at it. An amazing experience. You should totally listen to my episode that I feature on, because it's the best episode we've ever done. Everybody said so. It's true. You can look it up. It's stats. In fact, you don't have to look it up. Just take my words for it. Thank you so much, Caryn, for creating the podcast, and thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of it. So much fun, and I listen to it every week.
Also, as a bonus, some of our guests from the podcast this year came back to talk about what made their 2020, what their top music, movie, shows, podcasts, books were, and just to give you some last minute recommendations. So we have Pia Jane, who is up first, and then Lebo, who is up second, and then the rest introduce themselves, so I don't have to do it. Very kindly of them. So yeah, have a listen.
The best series of 2020 has to be The Mandalorian. The season finale of season 2 was just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I screamed, I cried, I laughed. And then I also have to mention The Undoing, The Queen's Gambit, Normal People, and Schitt's Creek. Those were the highlights, if I can think about like series that got me through 2020. And then also my trash TV, which is Real Housewives of Potomac and Are You the One on Netflix. And then for movies, I think the one that we enjoyed the most was Love and Monsters with Dylan O'Brien and Palm Springs with Andy Samberg. Those were, and I'm sure there's more, but those were if I can think about 2020 and the movies and the series that got me through it, those are the ones.
I don't know if it's just because we've been in lockdown that our standards have dropped, or that all the studios were saving their best material for this lockdown period specifically, because I feel like pretty much everything I saw this year was actually good. Like I can't think of anything that I saw where I was like, oh my goodness, this is an abomination. Like, I mean, I even enjoyed a Christopher Nolan movie again, so there's that. I would say the best shows and stuff I saw this year was probably Rami season 2 and also Palm Springs. And special shout outs to Love Life on HBO Max starring Anna Kendrick, as well as Run, also on HBO. So I picked those shows specifically because, on top of being very entertaining, because they've all got like some comedic elements, a lot of them deal with a lot of very human characters, especially in the Fleabag mold. Fleabag was arguably the best show of like the last 2 years, and that dealt with a very flawed human being, just trying to make her way through life. And I think these shows really show us that, like, guys, like, life is actually pretty difficult in the best of times, let alone with what we're going through now in a pandemic. So I think we could all stand to just treat each other with like a bit more grace and forgiveness, try to understand each other a bit more. It doesn't mean we must allow people to like take us for a ride, obviously, because that's a big no-no. But we also need to understand that people are human beings, they make mistakes, or should I say bad choices. Whether or not we can live with those choices and offer them a way back, I think that's something we can all understand and decide for ourselves. But I think life is pretty nuanced, so I think we all need to be more open to that. So that's what I would say were the best shows / movies I saw this year. So Palm Springs, Rami season 2, Run, and Love Life, all on HBO Max. So yeah, that's me. Hope it helps.
Hi, it's Roseanne McKenzie, arguably the biggest fan of the What's IGN Crushing On podcast. Anybody that wants to argue can come and fight me. The book that I enjoyed the most this year has to be Mermaid Fillet or Mermaid Fillet by Mia Ardern. I am absolutely obsessed with it. I had read some reviews and people had been kind of talking about it word of mouth about how awesome the book is. And I kept saying, I want to read it. And I never got around to it because lockdown just took my whole love of reading away for a while. And then when I heard Mia's interview on the podcast with Caryn, I went out and bought the book immediately. I read it in record time. I think it's the fastest I've ever read anything. It is so good. I want everyone to read this book. It's so well written. It tackles so many issues without being issue heavy, and it's just so brilliant to read a story from the flats that sounds and feels like it's authentic. And I think Mia is a superstar. I am as obsessed with her as I am with What's IGN Crushing On podcast. And I just think that this book is something that everyone should read. I was entertained. I was shocked. It's amazing. I can't keep going on about it. I've never read a novel in South Africa like it. And the fact that the way that she writes every character is so true to that character. And the story is just, I can't stop talking about it, so maybe I should stop talking about it now. But Mia Ardern, Mermaid Fillet, highlight of my year.
Hi, Crushing On. It's me, Fani, Fani Base. You can find me at Fani Nani on Twitter or Instagram, and you can find me at Fani Base on Strava if you want to see how well I'm sublimating my neuroses into physical activity. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to Caryn and the Crushing On team. It's been amazing to be part of the wonderful sort of podcast Lotus Flower that's been opening and showing new new petals, a lot of them with me this year. So I've really enjoyed being a part of it and seeing Crushing On grow. I am doing my favorite lists for all the girls and the gays at home over this festive season and setting my my content intentions before the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. So I've got some movies, I've got a podcast, I've got some books, so get out your pens and pencils because here they come. Firstly, I recently watched a really great A24 film, which came out sort of end of 2019. So I think its release was sublimated by the very real dread of apocalypse that was taking hold of us all, and still objectively has a firm grip on our psyches. It's a really wonderful. Who directed it? I've got a tab open. It's called Killer Dress A24. It's one of those really great eccentric British directors. Peter Strickland. Okay, say no more. So In Fabric, Peter Strickland, about a gorgeous red dress being sold at like the most ridiculous satanic boutique, which goes around and kills people, but in like a really insidious and rash-causing way. As someone who got scabies from a mattress at UCT, I can really relate to this dramatic text. I also think taking some time to enjoy media is about doing your cultural education, and for that reason I found on YouTube there's a really nicely shortened sort of the Reader's Digest version of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell, and it's lovely because, let's be honest, our brains have been so fried by Verymark and Instagram videos and Vine that we don't have the attention span for a 2-hour film, or at least I don't. And it's really lovely because it's a delightful film and actually a really wonderful performance by Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell, who I don't really know beyond Yaya's sisterhood, so seeing her at her sort of zenith is really interesting and quite fun. Another one, sorry, I'm giving you some drinking water ASMR if my Mac microphone allows, and now I'm going to cough because it went down the wrong pipe. I'm a podcast professional. In the Mood for Love is my last recommendation. It's actually, if you like films, if you like vision, if you just like looking at things, it's an absolute seminal must watch. I've put it off for a while because I didn't really like the summary of the story. So what I suggest is just find it. I think you could probably get this from Google Play, but otherwise you're going to have to resort to some more nefarious means. Download it, get a good subtitle file, and don't Google what it's about. Just watch it. It's the most beautiful film. It defies a genre. It's really just something to emotionally engage with, and it's lovely. It's worth actually taking the time to sit down, watch it fresh, concentrate on how it's put together, which brings me, actually, this is a surprise fourth one, which is not on the hastily scribbled piece of paper. I just watched half of, I fell asleep in the middle because I'm very tired, half of Dogtooth by Yorgos Lanthimos, who did The Favourite. Sorry for butchering that name. I'm probably not going to be allowed at Ari Souflaki anymore, but it's the most wonderful, also defies genre, about this dad who keeps his adult children in a state of sort of perpetual childhood by saying that they're going to get killed by a cat if they leave the property, but it's like a darker Virgin Suicides. Podcasts, I've really enjoyed Limetown. It's a terrible TV series starring Jessica Alba, but the original podcast, which is made sort of like a fake true crime podcast, is really... I think even the sound direction, how they've sort of created a lot of fake news clips. Just to give you a précis, it's about this fictitious place called Limetown, a sort of research facility for mental health where everybody went missing. And they I was on episode 4 when I realized it was made up. It's so well done, and it's quite dark. Don't go into it if you're in a bad headspace, but if you want something macabre and really gripping, I would really recommend finding that on your podcast app. Books, as everybody knows, I live in the New Yorker short fiction podcast. So whilst I was avoiding the recommendations of Wordsworth Books Lady, God bless her, I found a really lovely anthology of David Sedaris's essays called The Best of Me. I'm halfway through it, but it is the most hilarious and clever thing you have ever read. And it says David Sedaris really big, so if you want to terrorize your literary friends with your tastes, I think it's a very good investment. Another great one, also part of, my twisted Great Expectations self-betterment project. I just read all of Mythologies by Roland Barthes, and it is surprisingly understandable. I mean, you just have to go into it secure in the knowledge that he is a sexually frustrated but very intelligent gay man. And once, I obviously could relate to it on that level, it was a really enjoyable read. And it's very interesting to sort of unpack the ideas of things we take for granted. The essay on astrology is particularly good. I'm not doing very well at describing things, but I think often when I hear the description of things, I don't really like them. I'm hoping that I sell it to you as part of my effervescent charisma, and then you can sort of go into these things blind and decide for yourself whether or not you like it. My last book recommendation, also very heavy but really good, is called Sex and Lies by Leila Slimani. Really beautiful book, sort of stories, essays, interviews. It's not quite a together narrative. I'm still in the beginning of it, but I'm very entranced by it, of sort of women in the contemporary Arab world. I want to say Arab and North African, but sort of if you think, I think she's Moroccan. I think a lot of it's in Morocco, but I suspect it's sort of Morocco to Jordan, that sort of strip of the Mediterranean. That was a terrible review. You can guillotine me for that one. You can Mara me, put me in a bath with a skin disease for that literary analysis, and especially considering I do technically have a degree in English. But don't worry, I spend too much time just spelling badly and mispronouncing things for anyone to ever imagine that I actually did do a very good essay on comparing the diary of forget it was a Rilke book to Bridget Jones' Diary, and it was great. Anyway, thank you so much. I wish everybody a wonderful festive season, whether you're secular or non-secular. I hope you have some wonderful festivities, and not a happy new year, but I think a rewarding new year. I hope that you all go into the new year with your eyes open, with your intentions set, and with 2 feet on the ground. I think that's the best any of us can hope for. Thanks so much. Bye.
Hi, this is Sloan, and you are listening to another episode of my favorite podcast, What's IGN Crushing On? Today I'm here to give you a quick recap of my entertainment highlights from 2020. This year was a particularly good year for people of color in TV and film, and some of my best performances this year gave me exactly what I was looking for: strong black leads. My top 3 new shows for 2020 was the heartbreakingly good I May Destroy You, P-Valley, that took us down to the dirty south, and the scary good Lovecraft Country. A returning favorite of mine, Insecure, also delivered one of the best seasons this year. While Issa's professional life trended upwards, her personal relationships were messier than ever, including an ever-growing rift between herself and Molly, played by Yvonne Orji. Speaking of Yvonne Orji, she also had her first special on HBO this year called Mama, I Made It, which I highly recommend. It was funny and it gave us a background look into her life growing up in Nigeria and also introduced us to her stand-up comedy style. The girls were also consistently fed this year with a steady supply of Drag Race seasons that included a pandemic-affected 12th season of Drag Race proper, an overdue win for Shea Coulee on All Stars, and one of my favorite new additions to the ever-growing Drag Race roster, Drag Race Canada. My two biggest movie moments of 2020 has to be the visual feast that was Beyonce's Black is King, which I can admit I watched every day for 2 weeks, and then secondly, the release of Hamilton. I was skeptical going into it, but I can confirm that Hamilton is every bit worth the hype. And because that wasn't enough singing for me already, I have to mention my favorite albums from this year, the first one being Chromatica, which was Lady Gaga's triumphant return to pop music, and my second favorite album from this year was Tiana Taylor's The Album, and this was her first album to debut in the top 10 on the album charts. I have to give a quick honorary mention to one of my favorite rom-coms of this year, the South African film Seriously Single, which is streaming on Netflix. And then I also have to give a shout out to one of my favorite celebrities, JoJo, who started this year off with her first Grammy win and ended this year off with her first Christmas album. Thank you for listening, and remember to follow Crushing On Twitter and Instagram, and to listen on all streaming platforms. Season's greetings from Sloan Said So.
And now we've come to the point of the episode where I give my best of 2020. I'm very sorry for this list. It's very long, very comprehensive, and I'm going to try not explain my choices as I'm wont to do, like my favorite movies up top. So, I'm just going to give you my list, and that's it. But this year was very busy. A lot of content came out. So this is my very subjective list of favorites of 2020. Starting with books. So I didn't read much this year. And from what I did read, not much of it, is 2019, 2020 books. But my Goodreads is a mess right now. And I'm not even going to put a goal for next year. I can't deal with that kind of disappointment again. So the 4 books that I loved this year was, number 1, The Testaments of Margaret Atwood. Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which is a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. And I spoke about it in episode 1 with Jamie, as well as in episode 9 with Zayan. Then music. So there was a lot of great pop music that came out this year, and I'm a big fan of pop music. So my top 5 albums of this year was Lady Gaga's Chromatica, Rina Sawayama's Sawayama, Taylor Swift's Folklore, Chloe and Halle's Ungodly Hour, and my favorite, Dua Lipa's Future Nostalgia. Then when it comes to films, this year was a bit of a tricky year because not a lot of movies could come out in cinema. We didn't have much to choose from. Only stuff that came out on streaming. But you'll see, I speak about this afterwards, but I also found myself watching a lot of older movies and catching up on movies that, was part of canon and popular that I hadn't seen before. So out of the films that came out in 2020, what I loved was Emma, which was the last movie I saw in cinemas, and I talk about it a lot, but Emma is my favorite Jane Austen novel, probably one of my favorite books ever. I love Clueless, but I also love this version. And Anya Taylor-Joy, I am a huge fan. Number 2 is The Trial of the Chicago 7, which came out on Netflix, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. Number 3 is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, recently also came out on Netflix. Number 4 is Mank, another Netflix movie. Number 5 is Hamilton. The recording of the stage performance just was stunning. I've been a fan of Hamilton since it came out, and I just used to listen to the album of the cast over and over and just try and search for illegal videos on YouTube of it, and seeing it in real life for the first time, in real life with Inverticon for the first time was so emotional. I said I'm not going to explain things, I'm sorry, but it really was. And It was excellent. Number 6 is the documentary Disclosure, which talks about representation of trans people in film and TV. Just opened my eyes a lot. And I love the fact that they got so many trans actors to speak about their own experiences. Like, instead of having other people speak for them. And then number 7 is the comedy special Mama, I Made It by Yvonne Orji. She's from Insecure. I don't watch Insecure, but I did see this on Showmax and I decided to check it out because I knew she was from Nigeria. And I love Nigeria. And it was just so funny. And I think a lot of the humor was very specific to Africans. Like, I found, like, I was rolling around laughing. And there's inserts where she goes back to Nigeria and she speaks to her family and she speaks to people on the street. And the way everything was put together was so good and so funny. So that was my number 1 comedy special for this year. So as I said, I also watch quite a bit of older movies. So here are 7 recommendations from me if you're looking for a slightly older movie to watch. Number 1. So these are ones that I watched for the first time this year. Number 1, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind from 2004. Number 2, Love, Rosie, another rom-com from 2014. Number 3 is a movie that should have actually been on my favorite movies ever list, and I'm so stupid for not adding it. But number 3 is Network from 1976. Number 4 is the original Rebecca, which was recommended to me by Fani in one of the previous episodes. But it's from 1940. It's an Alfred Hitchcock film. Number 5 is Desperately Seeking Susan from 1985. It has Madonna in it. She is the most iconic in it. Number 6 is Sunset Boulevard from 1950. An amazing film. Seriously, like, I fell in love the minute the film was over. And number 7 is yet another Audrey Hepburn charade from 1963. It's very much like a caper comedy vibe. It has Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant. I love Cary Grant. Like, one of my celeb crushes, my bisexual king, Cary Grant. Okay. Then, when it comes to series, I love series, and everybody knows this. And also, there was such a great amount of excellent series that came out this year. Making this list was so difficult, so I divided it into 10 of my favorite new series, which includes mini series, and then 6 of my favorite returning series. So I'm going to start with the new ones. So number 1 is Michaela Coel's I May Destroy You. I mean, gosh, I don't know. I've spoken about this many times on the podcast. I spoke about it with Knox. I spoke about it with Molesa. I spoke about it with Mia. But there was a show. That's all I'm saying. Number 2 was The Queen's Gambit. I mean, I'm sure everybody has seen this by now, but another great show. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, and just everything about that show. I don't even know how to play chess, and I was so obsessed with chess by the end of it. Number 3 was The Babysitters Club. I was a big fan of The Babysitters Club books growing up, and I just think that this was such a good adaptation because not only did it bring forth the wholesomeness of the original book series, but it also updated it adequately for the modern times. And it's also a very sweet, cute show. Number 4 is the South African series How to Ruin Christmas: The Wedding. Yeah, and it just recently came out, and it's probably one of the best South African original series I've seen. The storyline is good, the acting, the music, it's extremely funny, but also the dramatic moments really hit home as well, which I was really impressed. It's 3 episodes on Netflix. Number 5 was P-Valley. I think I've spoken about it also previously on the podcast, but it's on Showmax, and it's about a strip club in the deep south and the lifestyle around it. Also excellent acting, music, writing. Number 6 is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. This was recommended to me by Sloan in his episode, and I do love musicals, but this also really made me cry, and I just loved all the characters by the end of it, so that's why this goes on the list. Number 8 is Little Fires Everywhere, which the miniseries with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. Also really well written and directed. Number 9 is Mrs. America, another mini-series about the women's movement in the 1970s in the US and their mission to get the Equal Rights Act rectified. It sounds a lot more boring than it was, but it was really exciting. And it stars Kate Blanchett, Rose Byrne, Tracy Ullman, Uzo Aduba, and it's just like this powerhouse group of women. And then number 10 is Julie and the Phantoms, another musical, another preteen teenage show, also quite sweet, also such an excellent look at grief told by many different people. So that's number 10. And then like an extra one I'm just adding in for fans is Bridgerton, which came out on Friday, and I was obsessed with these romance books in my 20s, and the way that they brought it on screen, like on Netflix in the series, was so well done and so entertaining and so sexy that I just loved it. And then my favorite returning shows was The Good Fight. Like, I will always have The Good Fight in my corner. I think it's one of the best written shows on TV, and I feel like it's criminally underrated. Number 2 is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Like, I have such a problem with Amy Sherman Palladino shows where there's sections of it that I absolutely love and the sections that I absolutely hate. But as somebody who loves stand-up comedy, who loves the 60s, and just Amy Sherman Palladino's shows, just everybody talks fast, they're funny, looks beautiful. And I didn't enjoy season 2 of the show, but I think season 3 did a really good job. Then my next one is Survivor season 40, Winners at War. It was so dramatic and so excellent and had all of our favorites returning. Like, I am always a stand for Parvati Shallow. Like, she is my favorite Survivor contestant. And Ethan came back, Ethan from season 3 of Survivor. And, I didn't watch a lot of the newer seasons, so I also fell in love with a lot of the newer people like Michelle, like Wendell, which a lot of people find problematic. But anyway, number 4 is The Crown. Well, we had an entire roundtable about it, and if you want to hear me discuss it more, you should watch that on YouTube. About the Diana, Thatcher, the entire situation. Like, I thought it would be a lot more like trashy than it was, but they did it excellently. And yeah, watch the YouTube video of me talking about it more. Number 5 is Superstore. I also think this is a very underrated comedy, but in particular, the way that they dealt with coronavirus, I thought was very good. As we know, a lot of people who work in retail and shops have been at the forefront of the virus, have been exposed to it so much. Like, so many people have died just by working in shops and like making sure that we have our basic needs. And they are often the unsung heroes. So a show that deals with retail and has and just showing how, like, from the experience of people working in stores, but still like well done comedy. I thought that they really did a good job this season. And then the last one isn't specifically a series, but it's more of a special. I spoke about it last week, I think, as well. Euphoria's Christmas special, Trouble Don't Last Always. Oh my word. A show that made me so emotional. And it makes me so sad that the last time like Euphoria was on TV was like mid 2019. And because of the pandemic, they haven't been able to film, so they've just been filming these specials, and the next one will be released in Jan. But this was so beautifully done with just Zendaya's character Rue and Coleman Domingo's Ali, honest fave of mine. So yeah, that's my best of 2020. So that's all from us for 2020. We hope that you have an amazing end of year, that you and your family have a good festive season. We'll be taking a break next week, and we'll be back on the 11th of January with our next interview with our next amazing guest, and we're very excited to bring this to you. So yeah, as just before we end off, I would just like to say thank you to Rebecca, who has done an amazing job of bringing this podcast to everyone, for editing out all my random moments and my terrible technology problems that you guys don't even know I deal with. But she's really been making miracles with the very little that we have. We have ragtag team, ragtag equipment, but she's been making it work. So I just would like to thank you, and for all the time that she gives to this, even though she's studying full-time and works full-time, and this is her job, and she does this for free, as we said earlier. And we'd also like to thank our guests. I mean, what the hell would the show be without the guests? Just me rambling, and everybody knows how terrible that is, like case in point right now. But so we'd just like to say thank you to Jamie Lee Jacobs, Pia Jane, Leanne Lakshmi Phillipson, Sloan, Alison Adams, Andisa, Gweniso van Dam, Leandra Engelbrich, Tash Montlick, Zayan Shrudamology, Nokolo Mafo, Kevin Quedeman, Inga Davids, Fanny Bass, Taryn Cadre, Zaid Krill, Lindy Johnson, Mulesa Lumina, Roseanne McKenzie, Talia Goldberg, Mia Arden, Lebo Sabisi, Shamiz Patel Papathanasio, Howard James Fivey, Yasin Barnes, Charles Mneni, Hakim K. Kazim, Tekla Kiofi, Danny Bagel, Val and Vanessa Walby Solomon. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast this year. Please send any feedback of how we can improve next year to our email address. Follow us on YouTube, follow us everywhere. We will let you know when the next episode is coming out, which is the 11th, but we will let you know. So yeah, thank you. The podcast can be found at Crushing On Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find more information about this and all our other episodes at our website, crushingonpodcast.com, and send any feedback to crushingonpod@gmail.com. Join our Facebook group, Crushing On Club, where we chat about the show, celebrity news, recommendations, the whole shebang. Let us know what you think about what was discussed in this week's episode by sending us a voice note or email to crushingonpod@gmail.com. The show is produced by me, Caryn, and Rebecca Barches. The show is edited and engineered by Rebecca Barches. Our logo was designed by Nathifa Maroof. And the show was created in partnership with IGN Africa. If you like the show, tell everyone that you can, any way that you can. Keep up to date with all our episodes by subscribing to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please rate and review the episodes on Apple Podcasts, as it helps others find the show. We'll be back next week with another in-depth conversation with a pop culture lover. See you then!